And what this theater program did was it allowed them, the kids, to have a voice. And through a one-on-one with a theater professional or celebrity, we would sit with them and they would tell their story to us very confidentially. And then we would have a team of writers who would write the story. And at the end of the season, we would create these skits that would play back the stories of these kids to invited audiences. It was all anonymous.
So you workshopped the script.
Yeah, we were workshopping throughout the season, absolutely. But it really was therapy for these kids. I remember a mother who was a single mom. Her husband was incarcerated. And the child was so affected by what was going on with the street gangs. She thought that, she was going to lose her son as well. And, that he was going to get into the system and be incarcerated as well at such a young age. She was just really, really worried about him. And, I remember one day after rehearsal, she pulled me aside and she just grabbed me and just started sobbing uncontrollably. She said, "This is the first time that I'm seeing light in my son's future." She said, I never could imagine the day that I could see him smile, that he comes home after these workshops and he's smiling. It's like life is living. He's alive again. He's living again.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Panacea9 by Gloria Y. I hope you had a wonderful week behind you and that you have an even better one ahead of you. Anyway, we're happy to have you back if you're coming back, and welcome you if you're just joining our programming now. Today, I'm looking forward to a very engaging conversation with a wonderful creative individual, and his name is Shidan Majidi. Before we say hello to him, I'd like to offer a brief introduction. Shidan Majidi is a visionary storyteller, director, and producer dedicated to shifting the focus from otherness to oneness. Through the power of narrative, Shidan's reality theater project has been successfully recognized for the ability to use the stage as a transformative space for healing and unity. Sponsored by New York City's mayor's Stop the Violence program, the initiative gained critical praise and media attention for its innovative approach to fostering dialogue in divided communities. Shidan's professional journey includes working with award-winning giants in the film and theater industry, which we will explore in the midst of the interview, not to mention the fact that he himself is the recipient of multiple international awards for his cinematic and theatrical works. Welcome to our program, Shidan. So nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. It was a very long intro, but I'm so grateful and I'm embarrassed.
I tried to cut it down so much. I just didn't know what not to say. I've already cut a lot. And I'm hoping that in the midst of the interview, some of the things I didn't mention will come up. So anyway, it's crazy how aligned the focus of your activities are to my own creative activities. I have been mostly advocating for women's rights. But then when you advocate for a group of people, it's really advocating for everyone, because there are so many similarities in projects where we talk about the underprivileged, whether it's by sex, by race, by gender, by social status, or economic means. Anyway, I didn't know where to start as far as your activities are concerned. And then I thought I'll start with your One People project, mainly because our own tagline for this program, for Panacea9, is One World, One Family. So when I saw One People, I thought, wow, that's a great place to start on this program. Now, before you go into explaining what this is, can you tell us a little bit about what reality theater is? We hear about reality TV, but is that the same as what I grew up with, interactive theater, or is it different?
It's identical. It's the same thing.
Oh, is it?
It's about audience participation. To be honest with you, I'm going to age myself. This was created back in the 90s when I was a student here in New York City. And I was inspired by this wonderful program called the 52nd Street Project. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
It's kind of technically an off Broadway theater company that is run out of a police precinct in Midtown Manhattan where the theater district is. So what the theater professionals did, and a lot of celebrities, the season that I worked on it, Frances McDormand was very actively involved, the Academy Award-winning actress. And so what they did was inner city kids, underprivileged kids, after school, they would come to this theater, which was at a police precinct in Midtown Manhattan.
Okay.
And by the way, it still is going on. And they would match them or they would pair them with a celebrity. And the kids would open up about their real life stories. And you can imagine inner city kids, I don't know if this term is common outside of the US or maybe New York.
We see it on television series, right? And on
Yeah.
film.
So these are underprivileged kids who come
Right.
from mainly single sort of parents, the projects, low income housing, more than likely, in most cases, a parent may be incarcerated. So these are broken houses, broken homes. And what this theater program did was it allowed them, the kids, to have a voice. And through a one-on-one with a theater professional or celebrity, we would sit with them and they would tell their story to us very confidentially. And then we would have a team of writers who would write the story. And at the end of the season, we would create these skits that would play back the stories of these kids to invited audiences. It was all anonymous.
So you workshopped the script.
Yeah, we were workshopping throughout the season, absolutely. But it really was therapy for these kids. And it was about theater, as you know, is I believe that every human being, you know how we go to the gym to exercise our physical bodies or muscles? I highly recommend everybody taking theater classes. It really builds self-esteem skills, confidence skills, public speaking skills, and that interaction with not only during the rehearsal process, but also when you put something on stage and you have that relationship with an audience, that exchange is euphoric. And for these kids, it was an outlet. It allowed them a voice. So that project inspired me. And here in New York City, we have a Baha'i Center that actually has a small theater. It's like a black box theater, and it seats 200 people. So we thought back in the day, MTV was very popular, and there was a reality TV show called The Real World that really kicked off this whole reality sort of like genre. And we kind of thought, let's basically buy into that. And instead of calling it immersive theater, we kind of like wanted to do something catchy, and we said reality theater.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so it was something that we created. It's not a commonly known term.
Yeah, but you're right. It is catchy, and it attracts a certain audience to itself. I have a question about your audience.
Yes.
Who is your audience?
Great question. So the way that we made this model different to the 52nd Street Project was that obviously the focus wasn't on celebrities. The focus was the inner city kids, but we brought on trained conflict resolution social workers. And what we did was we had professional playwrights who wrote a play, and I'm sure you've heard of this model. You create a situation where a conflict is introduced. At the point of conflict, the play is stopped. The audience is split into different working groups.
Okay, yes.
And then the audience consult. And through the consultation and, the discussion of the characters that they've witnessed, and, most of these characters would carry themes of, the social issues of the day, issues that, we don't normally have conversations about in everyday life. But this was an opportunity to get inside the character and perhaps share a bit of yourself and then present how the rest of the play should continue. But the challenge was to turn the conflict into resolution. So it was a chance for the audience to then get together, like in a workshop, and consult. So that whole process of consultation was something very revealing, this exchange of ideas and this exchange of conversation that allows people to get to know each other intimately. So it sort of elevates the normal social sort of etiquette of like having, conversations about the weather or like trivial, superficial stuff. into let's talk about real issues and how do you relate to this and what would you do with this character or this situation? How would you overcome this conflict? And
Right.
then at the end, each group would have a representative who would go on the stage, and through the applause of the audience, the chosen ending for the play would be reenacted as an improv by the actors.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Wow.
so we won. We got so much publicity in New York. The mayor gave us grant to continue this, and I even came to Toronto and did something in Toronto.
Now, this project is supposed to be, um, supposed to create transformation while it's going on through the improv, through the consultation, through that what has been workshopped or worked on before. Do you have any particular moments, a story of something that you witnessed during an actual transformation that impacted you?
Absolutely. I can tell you that in New York, especially because we did it so many times and we took it out to the schools in the different boroughs here in New York. I remember, please, this is back in the 90s, but I remember a mother who was a single mom. Her husband was incarcerated. And the child was so affected by what was going on with the street gangs. She thought that, she was going to lose her son as well. And, that he was going to get into the system and be incarcerated as well at such a young age. She was just really, really worried about him. And I remember one day after rehearsal, she pulled me aside and she just grabbed me and just started sobbing uncontrollably. She said, "This is the first time that I'm seeing light in my son's future." She said, I never could imagine the day that I could see him smile, that he comes home after these workshops and he's smiling. It's like life is living. He's alive again. He's living again. And he has become so positive. He doesn't hang out with the gangs anymore. And that kid has now gone on to great things in life. So really the magic is a wrong word. It's a skill. And I'm so sorry that the arts aren't really regarded in the same level as medicine, et cetera,
You and I
because
both.
they are healing, yet we don't treat them as such in society.
No.
And the arts have the power to transform lives. And, imagine life
Absolutely.
without them. So yeah, I mean, this is one example. I've lived throughout my life of experience these kind of like miracles that, the arts and storytelling can affect human lives and how it impacts and transforms.
Well, it's interesting how you said the arts are so transformative. They are indeed life-giving. I mean, if you believe in God, which I do, God himself, the creator, let's say the creator, is an artist. I mean, the whole creation is about art. The different colors, the different shapes, the different scents, the different everything put together so beautifully, every living thing. And it's incredible. And I share your I want to call it agony because it is agony for me, how the arts are undervaluated. They are so important and they are so transformative and they can actually heal. But yes, we pay more attention to sciences and other things. Now, what made you want to be a theatrical producer or writer or director? And when did you know that's what you were going to be?
Sure, a bunch of different things. I was fortunate to grow up in a very non-traditional Persian kind of family. My mom was a pianist, my dad's cousin was an actor, Iranian actor, who married an American Hollywood actress. And then they formed famous Persian theater, I think Talar Rudaki.
Really? Oh, the Talar Rudaki
Is that what it is? I may be mistaken, but it was a major Persian theater, and he was very involved in, the theater and film life in Iran back in the day. And so these people became my idols. And then we would go to the Caspian Sea during the summers. It's my only memory of Iran.
Oh, so you were born in Iran?
Yes, I was born in Iran.
Okay.
As little kids, they would take us to the Caspian Sea for the summers, and all the cousins and my aunt loved theater, and she would put on these shows, and she would create costumes, and we would, as cousins, and there was so many of us, do fairy tales like Disney and stuff, and we would enact them and we would sell tickets, and lots of people would come. And I was obsessed. I was obsessed about every detail, not only just about acting or performing, but what happened behind the scenes, the sets, the costumes, the lights, every aspect of it I was obsessed about. And how to sell the tickets, how to market the show. I was a little tiny kid, and that love stayed with me. Yeah. So I was kind of born with it, I guess.
You're very lucky.
I
You're
am.
blessed.
Yes.
I grew up in a family who was not as conventional as most other Iranian families, and yet I couldn't do theater until later on and in secret. When I brought up to my parents that I wanted to do theater from high school going to university, my father threw a tantrum, and for 2 hours I listened to this lecture. And I decided to keep quiet. And instead, I applied to business, but minored in theater alongside of it, and then continued my activities. And I went to school in Toronto. My family lived in Ottawa, so they weren't aware of my theatrical activities. So not everyone being born in an Iranian family has that privilege. And I think you should be very happy about that. So very quickly, do you think, I mean, all the arts are transformative, from fine arts to performing arts to music to, you name it, whatever. But someone who started, as myself, I started with theater and then later on moved to film. And I've done a little bit of film, but my passion, my first love, of course, is theater. I have a very strong opinion that theater is one of the most powerful area in the arts for transformative results. Do you believe that? Do you think I'm correct? And if not, do you have an area where, like film or music or fine arts, that you think might be more powerful than theater?
Wow, this is a big question. I did a double major in film and theater. I
Okay.
begun immediately after graduation. I worked in film. I mean, do you want me to go into detail of my
No,
path,
no,
or
no,
do you
no,
want me to
no.
just tell you, answer your question? Yeah,
Yes.
I was passionate about theater. The electricity of live theater, that interaction with an audience that gives you a response
Oh my
instantly.
God.
Yeah, it's so instant, it's so dangerous, it's electric, and nothing can replace that.
Such a high, isn't it?
It's such a high.
It's
So
like
yes,
having people in the palm of your hand. You
yeah,
can dictate their emotions,
exactly.
literally move them from one sphere to another, and you see them move. You actually experience it. It's such a high that I would always have a couple of weeks of depression following each closing.
Oh my God, tell me about it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But and of course in film the actors don't experience that.
No.
But then, as you know, there's also the economy of it. Film and television allow an actor a far more sustainable career than somebody in theater. And, with the pandemic, especially with the pandemic, although we here in New York also experienced something similar during September 11, when everything just shut down, when theater stops or if the economy is crippled, theater always suffers. So for me, it was about sustainability. It was about magnitude in terms of audience outreach. And it was just before the pandemic, after 23 years of working on Broadway and working with the best, I gambled. We released a film. I'm jumping. Maybe you want me to stop? I'm moving on to the
Yeah,
film.
I'm going to explore your film activity
Yeah,
later. So yeah, so why don't we stop? But I am going to bring up one film
sure.
that is the reason we're here. There's a reason you're here, because I found out that you're making this film
Okay.
with Riza Ali. It's called Climbing My Everest. It's a
Yes.
documentary, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I have actually dedicated 2 episodes to that, with Riza joining us in a future part. But this is going to be our first episode with you. But it's that film that had me asking you to come on the podcast. So why don't you just mention a little bit about the film, also because I believe you have a crowdfunding platform, right?
Yeah,
That will help you finish the project.
it would help.
Because as everyone knows, I'm assuming this is independent cinema.
It is absolutely
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Independent cinema does not have investors, not huge investors, not even little investors. So a lot of independent filmmakers rely on crowdfunding, on a little bit of from me, a little bit from you, that will add up and help these independent filmmakers make their films. So we're going to put in the link to Shidan's project, Shidan and
Yes.
project in the comment section. If you're inclined, check it out. The amount doesn't matter. It's the participation, because even if you give a few dollars, you're still helping a couple of filmmakers achieve a wonderful project.
You're so wonderful. Thank you. I don't think this applies to the rest of the world, but for Americans, their contribution is tax deductible. So they will be able to write it.
Yes, if you're American, for sure you will get a tax receipt. But if
Yes,
you're not, and if your country, wherever you are, does follow the same rules as the United States, you might
exactly.
still get that. The film means a lot, and it's going to mean a lot to a lot of people, I'm sure, which we will explore in future episodes. So that brings us to the end of this part. I had explained to Shidan before he came on the program that we've promised our viewers not to run on the podcast forever, because people don't have that much time. They have limited time to sit down and watch something, and we don't want to burden them with long episodes. So we keep them short, but we will break our conversation with certain individuals into 2, 3, 4 or more parts. And we're going to say goodbye for this part with Shidan Majidi. And then if you stick around, we'll come back and continue.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Until next week. Have a great time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
From scattered fragments to global unity, healing our world together. So, but then from there, you graduated to working with some iconic Broadway folks. Now, can you just briefly tell us a little bit about your experiences with these folks and their projects, and how that shaped your own avenue, your own direction in your creative work?
Sure. I was super lucky. When I finished my studies in New York, a friend of mine by the name of Neda Armian was the personal assistant to Jonathan Demme, who was the Oscar-winning director for Silence of the Lambs. And then they had just finished this film called Philadelphia.
Oh,
Can I tell you a crazy story?
Go ahead.
He's going to kill me. I don't even know if he's going to remember. So we were invited to do a play for the commemoration or the celebrations of the opening of the terraces in, the high grounds on Mount Carmel in Haifa in Israel.
Right.
So we were all very young, and we went to Haifa for rehearsals. And at the end of our time in Haifa, on our last day, all the actors and I sat on top of Mount Carmel looking out into Mediterranean, and we decided to say a prayer. Rain was sitting next to me, and we all said, okay, because we were all petrified. We were young. We thought, okay, we're going to go back to New York. How are we going to, pay for our rent, et cetera, et cetera, all the things that artists go through.
Right.
So anyway, after like this period of just absolute silence and meditation and this beauty of, the gardens and the sea, I looked at him and I said, what did you pray for?